Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
The province of Alberta is willing to spend likely in excess of $100,000 of your money from our already stretched thin justice ministry that they could be using to prosecute actual criminals, rapists, murderers, wife abusers, to try to wring $1,200 out of a struggling small business. Well, I'm proud to say that we're standing up for the rights of the little guy. And as Chad Williamson rightly puts this, it's prosecution of the poor.
On June 23rd, we appeared in Red Deer Provincial Court for the trial of our client, Wesley Langlois of Mom's Diner. Now, Wes had 2 charges for public health order complaint allegations. It was a enlightening day, to say the least. The more that we dive deeper into the rabbit hole and quagmire of the government's prosecution of these COVID tickets, the more apparent it's becoming that they're giving out tickets by the hundreds, which is likely going to cost Alberta taxpayers an absolute fortune. To a very great extent, what we're seeing here is a prosecution of the poor. People who have lost everything at the hands of COVID restrictions targeting their livelihood. There are many rural Albertans, the very backbone of this incredible province, who have been absolutely hammered by these restrictions. They're being prosecuted by what appears to be the fullest extent of the law. But to what cost?
Friends, do you remember the story of Mom's Diner from Red Deer, Alberta? It's this cool little 50s diner owned by Wes and Leslie Langlois. And the two of them, so cute, they're beloved in the neighborhood where their restaurant is. And they first came to us as an I Will Open story. IWillOpen.com is our special portal for small businesses who are willing to take a stand and defy the lockdown. So, of course, I zipped down to Red Deer to cover their story about why they were going to risk these expensive lockdown fines, or even worse, to take a stand against the Alberta government. And literally, as I was pulling up to Mom's Diner, the Langlois were getting a lockdown ticket. No problem, no biggie, right? We're Rebel News. And so naturally, we have a plan for this. I immediately offered the Langlois some help through fightthefines.com. That's our special civil liberties project where we help people who've received a lockdown ticket or fines or summonses and sometimes even criminal charges by putting them in touch with top criminal lawyers or civil lawyers at no cost to them to fight their tickets in court. You at home can support the Langlois and approximately 2,000 other people across the country by donating at fightthefines.com, and all donations there now qualify for a charitable tax receipt through the registered Canadian charity, the Democracy Fund. Now, getting back to the Langlois. Since I first met this wonderful couple, they've been everywhere fighting for freedom. They are the preferred meat smoker of choice for all your protest needs here in Alberta. They were at Ty Northcott's protest rodeo, and I've seen them a few times down at the Whistle Stop Cafe. The Langlois fight for freedom with great food and Alberta beef as their vehicle to do it. So, you gotta love them. Anyway, fast forward a few months, and the Langlois are in court right now for trial, fighting their lockdown ticket. The Langlois and Mom's Diner are among our very first lockdown ticket trials. This is where we test the government in court. Anyway, let's hear from Chad Williamson from Williamson Law. He's the incredible lawyer we've hired with your support through fightthefines.com to help the Langlois and hundreds of others fight their lockdown tickets in court. Take a listen.
On June 23rd, we appeared in Red Deer Provincial Court for the trial of our client, Wesley Langlois of Mom's Diner. Now, Wes had 2 charges for public health order complaint allegations. It was a enlightening day, to say the least. The more that we dive deeper into the rabbit hole and quagmire of the government's prosecution of these COVID tickets, the more apparent it's becoming that they're giving out tickets by the hundreds, which is likely going to cost Alberta taxpayers an absolute fortune. As you know, Williamson Law represents just shy of 100 clients, and we're running a fulsome defense on each one of these files, and we continue to open more almost every day. This week, Wesley's matter was scheduled for just a half-day trial. That may have been a little bit optimistic. The Crown had 6 officials show up to act as witnesses. peace officers, and Alberta Health Service inspectors. They were only able to call 3 before resting their case just as the clock struck high noon. Due to what we believe was a legal deficiency in the prosecution's case, we are now making an application for what we call a non-suit, which would effectively mean a dismissal of these claims. If it fails, we intend to continue our case to protect Wes's freedom of expression and his right to civil disobedience. And guess what that means? Another court date somewhere down the road, and that's just the trial on the merits. There are also constitutional submissions that need to be dealt with and charter challenges that require their own hearing. This is just a microcosm of what is happening on a much grander scale. Mountains of taxpayer dollars to maybe secure a couple of convictions worth, for the most part, $1,200. Now, the math just doesn't seem to add up. Setting aside the cost of enforcing COVID fines, running a COVID trial is becoming quickly apparent. It requires court time, court staff, clerks, a judge, a cleaning staff, a sheriff, a crown prosecutor, and all of the time that law enforcement and health inspectors need to testify and give evidence in support of the crown's case. There's a huge issue here. To a very great extent, what we're seeing here is a prosecution of the poor. People who have lost everything at the hands of COVID restrictions targeting their livelihood. There are many rural Albertans, the very backbone of this incredible province, who have been absolutely hammered by these restrictions. They're being prosecuted by what appears to be the fullest extent of the law. But to what cost? I believe that the entire provincial budget for the entire justice system, murders, sexual assaults, drug trafficking, civil matters, small claims, courthouses, paper, pencils, staff, the administration of justice in Alberta, and everything it takes to keep it running is $1.4 billion. Now, some say that's not even enough. Let's just fathom a conservative guess that the full prosecution of a COVID ticket costs the taxpayer $100,000. We're potentially looking at tens of millions of dollars and maybe even more to prosecute all of these matters should they be defended in accordance with due process. Is that sustainable? Will Albertans be willing to cover that cost? Is there a more productive way to open the public purse, especially after the economic devastation this province has suffered over the last year? I suppose time will tell.
We've already had some early success with other cases. We've had other tickets thrown out before they get to court. But the government this time has refused to budge with the Langlois. Apparently, the province of Alberta, the Justice Ministry, the Health Ministry, they're all willing to spend whatever it takes to get $1,200 measly dollars out of the Langlois. Let me say that again. The province of Alberta is willing to spend likely in excess of $100,000 of your money from our already stretched thin justice ministry that they could be using to prosecute actual criminals, rapists, murderers, wife abusers, to try to wring $1,200 out of a struggling small business. Well, I'm proud to say that we're standing up for the rights of the little guy. And as Chad Williamson rightly puts this, it's prosecution of the poor. These unfair and unwarranted consequences go to the least among us, the least likely to fight back, the least able to fight back, the rural, the small town struggling business owner, the hard-hit entrepreneurial class. All the people that make this place so great. Now, we've currently got a government in Edmonton that would rather put in excess of $100,000 that we don't have into a trial to fight Mom's Diner. And they do this instead of reining in these out-of-control bureaucrats. Why? Now, I'm going to do what I do best while Chad does what he does best, and I'm going to see if I can get my hands on some of the hard numbers about what this prosecution and really persecution of the poor is costing all Albertans. Now, Jason Kenney, the Health Minister Tyler Shandro, and Justice Minister Casey Madu are not going to rein in their out-of-control bureaucrats. We know that. So we're going to have to teach them a lesson in court, and that's where we need your help. We don't have endless taxpayer dollars, though, like the provincial government evidently does to fight back. We rely on the support of people like you at home so that we can keep Chad and the Langlois and well, 2,000 other people fighting their lockdown tickets in court. Yes, we're helping nearly 2,000 other people and small business owners and pastors from all across the country fight their lockdown tickets. We're helping these people speak truth to power. And if you'd like to help us, you can donate today at fightthefines.com, and all donations there now qualify for a charitable tax receipt through the registered Canadian charity, the Democracy Fund. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. Well, you heard Chad say it. The government is willing to waste approximately $100,000 to try to get $1,200 out of a small business who stood up to them. If you'd like to help us help the Langlois and approximately 2,000 other people from all across the country fight their lockdown tickets in court, please donate today at fightthefines.com, and all donations there now qualify for a charitable tax receipt through the registered Canadian charity, the Democracy Fund.